right, so we're talking about the golden calf, and on page 4, we're on 498, and I did see one of the commentaries says, what did the Jewish people mean when they said, this is your God, Eile Elohecha Yisrael? Remember that original statement, this is your God, O Israel, which sounds like the ultimate. And so I saw, it's a very interesting, you see, when the Jewish people left Egypt, they took the Erev Rav with them. The Erev Rav were the mixed multitudes, the Egyptian wannabes. And Moshe Rabbeinu took them with. Now what they were saying was like this, when the Jewish people left Egypt, so the Erev Rav being at a lower level, people at a lower level always have trouble ascribing higher motivation to other people. If you take somebody at a lower level who sees somebody at a higher level do something good. So if I'm at a lower level and I see you carrying packages for an old lady, for example, so my assumption is, you want to get a tip, don't you? Why do I project that onto you? Usually you project onto other people what your own motivation is. I can't even imagine that you would want, that you're doing this for altruistic purposes. I once had a guy, we have a tzedakah organization in our neighborhood. And so I'm keeping track of when we first started out. Now it's much more computerized and with receipts and everything else. But in the first years that we started out, so I had like a loose leaf notebook, and every money that we gave out, I wrote it down. So I once met, we had a lawyer in the United States running our tax exemption account in the United States. So he happened to be a firm guy, very big, very helpful. He helps us out. He met with me at my house, and I'm showing him this notebook. And he's clearly was not convinced, but where's all the money going? I said, no, this is, I write down everything that goes out, except for what we spend on envelopes. It's all right here in the notebook. And as a lawyer who's involved with people who are always doing all sorts of funny things, he couldn't get past the idea. I saw that in his firm guy, and he knows I'm a firm guy. He could not, it couldn't be that what I've got here is it. It was clear on him. I was amused by it. This is a guy, they had a guy in Israel, a lawyer in Israel who was the liaison. Join us, yes. A lawyer in Israel was the liaison. He was somehow the middleman between the politicians and some sort of builders. I don't know what it was. It was a real dirty job. So I heard an interview with this guy on the radio. They're talking in the cab, and they say to the Israeli interviewer says to him, "So I'm going to tell me something. Did you ever have to lie?" So this lawyer says, let's put it this way. There were some days where I told the truth. There were some days where I told the truth. So when you can't predict. So the Erev Rav comes out of Egypt, and they see the Jewish people. Why? What was in it for you to leave Egypt? And why did you leave Egypt? Well, let's go back. What did the Jewish people do when they left Egypt? They got gold, they got silver, they got cattle, took a lot of stuff from the Egyptians, right? They took all this stuff. So the Erev Rav was on a much lower level. They see the Jewish people took all this stuff out of Egypt. Oh, we know why you left Egypt. They put up a golden calf. This is the God that took you out of Egypt. You left Egypt for the material benefits. That's why you left, because you're going to have cattle and you're going to have gold. That's why you left. That's what the Erev Rav are projecting on the Jewish people. All of which is not true. That wasn't the motivation. Okay, that's where we got to yesterday. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu comes down from the mountain, and he's with Yoshua, and we got a very interesting exchange here on page 498. Vayishma Yoshua es kol ha'ambareo. Yoshua hears the people, and they're in a bad way. Vayomer el Moshe kol milchama b'machane. I hear the sound of war in the camp, because they hear noise coming from the Jewish camp. Vayomer ein kol anos gevura. That's not the sound of the victors. Vein kol anos chalusha. That's not the sound of the weak who have been defeated. Kol anos anochi shema. I hear the sound of wailing. Now, the commentaries go to town over here. First of all, you see, take a look at the Targum Onkelos. It's right to the left, top line of the Onkelos. Ushma Yehoshua yaskal ama kad biyavim. Yeshua hears the people. You see that in the Onkelos over there, Max? You see where that is? Top line in the Targum, the small print on the left. Ushma Yoshua yaskol ama kad miyavim. Here's the people while they are wailing. That's what miyavim means. Now, the people were ostensibly, they're having fun. They're having a party, they're eating, they're drinking, there's immorality going on. They have a lot of fun. And he uses an expression in the Targum, miyavim. Miyavim is the sound of the wailing. Wailing always implies some sort of internal sadness. You don't wail. You don't wail when you're happy. You wail when you're sad. And so one of the commentaries points out that's what happens to everybody who leaves the path. You were on the right path. You left the path. A Jew who leaves the path, even when he's sinning, he can't even enjoy it because there's something inside that's wailing. He's got a conscience inside. I know I really shouldn't be doing this. I know somewhere inside there's a guilt element inside. So the people are miyavim. Okay, now. There's another idea here. This is such a truism. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to Yeshua, listen, you're going to be the leader of the Jewish people. You're on deck to be the leader of the Jewish people. As the leader of the people, when you hear the sound, you have to be able to tell what the mood is. You can't listen to a sound and say, oh, the sound, I hear sounds of war. No, it doesn't work that way. If you're the leader of the people, you have to identify. You can ask any shul rabbi, any leader of any group, what's the mood of the people? Let's get our finger on the pulse. What's the mood of the people? You're going to be the future leader, Yeshua. You have to know what those sounds are. You have to be able to identify where are the people coming from. By the way, this is a rule in life in general. Whenever somebody asks you a question, asks you for advice, or asks you anything in life, you always have to find out where's he really coming. What's really underlying over here? What's the sound the person is making? Do you remember that we learned later on in the Torah in Parshat Ba'aloscha, it says that when Moshe Rabbeinu, God says to Moshe Rabbeinu to make trumpets. Do you remember the trumpets that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he wants to call the people together, wants to signal people to leave? And he's got these trumpets that are made for Moshe Rabbeinu. And then the Torah says that the trumpets, after Moshe Rabbeinu dies, Yeshua, whoever's going to take over, has to have a new set of trumpets. Those trumpets are going to be put in the gniza, so to speak. They're going to be put away in the gniza. Why? I mean, what's with trumpets? It's just an instrument. Why do you have to put the gniza? Why do you have to put the trumpets away and get new ones? I mean, they're working very well. So I heard Rav Weinbach, the Rosh Hashiva, Rav Weinbach said, a leader of each generation, there's a different way you speak to the generation. You communicate to the generation differently. Each generation has a different form of communication. The trumpets that are used by the Vilna Gaon, or the trumpets that are used by the Chazon Ish, are not the same trumpets that are used by Rav Shteinman. They're not the same trumpets that were used by Rav Shach. It's a different sound. It's a different communication generation. This is on a bigger scale as well. In the 70s, for example, when outreach began, when people started coming closer to Yiddishkeit, how did you reach out to them? People were looking for a certain amount of meaning. People were looking for a certain amount. People had questions. People were intelligent. People were looking for some serious answers, right? By the time in our generation, when you're reaching out to people, you know what we're trying to do to show people? We're just trying to show people sanity. I'm just showing you sanity. I'm not showing you anything else. I'm showing you. In the 70s, it was intelligence. In the 80s or 90s, it was money. The language today is just sanity. By the way, there is a world of people who are still sane. There's a world of people who are not caught up in absolute total madness. And each language, each generation has a different type of way of communicating with the people. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, when Moshe Rabbeinu says, I hear noise. I hear noise. Yeshua says it's the sound of victors, the sound of losers. Moshe Rabbeinu, it's just noise. Why is it that there's so much noise around the eagle? Why is there noise around the golden calf? There's noise, a lot of drums, noise. But what happens when you walk into a club? Not that any of you have ever been, right? But what's the first thing you hear in a club? It's real quiet, like a library, right? That's exactly what it is. Dun, 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 dun. Right, with people moving back and forth. Dun, dun. Before you haven't even gotten into the door and you're already dun, 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 dun. You know why that dun, dun, dun is? Because people who are about to behave like animals, you got to drown out all rational thought. And you got that beat in the background or whatever it is, the noise that's being made, that drowns out rational thought. That the louder, the more it drowns it out. The more noise there is, the more it blocks out rational thought. In our society, noise extends even further. In our society, noise extends even further. Society makes a lot of noise about money, a lot of noise about prestige. You're so caught up in the race of life to make money because somebody's making noise about it. That's the noise of the society. That's what distracts you. You ever notice, how do Torah Jews, if you're discussing, somebody's asking you questions about Yiddishkeit, how do you discuss it? Very quiet, very calm, very peaceful. Ask me and I'll tell you. No noise, because I don't need to distract you. I want you to focus on what I'm saying. In almost any other cult or group, there's always going to be noise in the background. The noise is to stop you and block out rational thought. It's a very, I forgot which one in the commentary says it. It's such a true, it's symbolic, obviously. It's not the plain meaning here, but it's so true symbolically. The noise of everything, people make a big deal out of things. Did anybody stop to think? There's a lot of noise. Let's take auto racing. A lot of noise about, with stock car racing, the Indy 500, that sort of thing. Did anybody stop to think that, periodically people get killed? What would happen in a Torah society of any activity where there's a danger of somebody getting killed? It would be immediately annulled. No, we don't do anything. Nothing's worth life. Nothing is worth it. A Hasidish Tish. Okay, once in a while, maybe you get clawed, right? But nobody gets killed, right? Nobody gets killed. We are only engaged in activities that are safe activities. You got an activity over here, people get killed. Boxing. Once about boxing. 30 people have been killed in the ring since 1960. Could you imagine from Jews an activity where there's a danger? Yeah, but there's prestige and there's honor. Hold on, questions for a little while. There's prestige, there's honor, there's money, there's everything else. Right? So we have to do it. That's just the noise. You're blocking rational thought. I was in the States I think in the early 90s. There was some auto race. One of the cars hit the wall. As he hit the wall, one of the tires shot off the car, went over the fence, and it killed 2 people in the stands. Right? These are big, those big thick tires. It just went in at 200 miles an hour, and it killed 2 people in the stands. So stop it. Put a stop. No. Let's just put a bigger fence. That's the noise of the society. Society makes noise, it distracts us, and it blocks out all rational thought. That's the idea. Okay. More than that. In Pasuk Yutes, Vayika asher korav el hamachane, when Moshe got close to the camp, 4th line, 498. Vayar esa egel umecholos. He saw the calf and he saw the circles. Mecholos, the circles, they're dancing. Vayichar af Moshe vayashlech miyadav ezaluchos. Moshe gets angry and he tosses down the luchos. He slams down the luchos. Vayeshaber osam tachas ahar. He shatters the luchos at the bottom of the mountain. He shatters the luchos at the base of the mountain. Anything about that strike you as strange? Anything about this pasuk conceptually, not don't pick on the words. Conceptually, something about here you should be wondering about something here. Moshe sees what's happening and he throws down the luchos. Sees the people worshiping the golden calf. Gemara says that Hashem ratified this afterwards. Hashem gave him. The expression the Gemara uses. Hashem said, "Yasher koach sheshibarta." You say Yasher koach to people. Shkoyach. People say shkoyach. Shkoyach is just a short form of saying Yasher koach. Yasher koach, your strength should be straight. You get an aliyah, and everybody says Yasher koach. And the Gemara says when Moshe Rabbeinu did this without Hashem, exactly what you're saying. He did it without asking, yet Hashem came back and said to him, Yishar koach sheshibarta. I give you a Yasher koach that you broke the luchos. You did the right thing. Okay, the question that I'm getting at here is, did Moshe Rabbeinu know before this that they were worshiping the golden calf? Moshe Rabbeinu was told by God, go down, your people have strayed, they're worshiping the golden calf. So right there, you should break the luchos. And when does Moshe Rabbeinu break the luchos?
When everyone can see him.
When he sees it. When he sees it. It says, Vayihi, look at the pasuk again. Vayihi kasher korav al hamachane. When Moshe got to the camp, Vayares ha'egel umecholos. He saw the golden calf. Then Moshe gets angry and he throws out. Why did he get angry earlier? Moshe Rabbeinu sees it. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, Rashi doesn't say it over here. It says, a judge, you should only judge, you have to see it. You have to see what's going on. It's not enough to hear about it. You have to see it. Seeing is believing. You're right. But you have to see. He's teaching us a lesson. He's teaching us a lesson. Make sure you see it. Don't go by hearsay. Obviously, but if Hashem tells you, you can rely on Hashem. Okay, so Moshe Rabbeinu breaks the thing. Now, Yisrael, you were asking about what do you call it? He's going to carry on now. Now that was only the beginning. Now it's going to get worse before it gets better. So he takes the calf. Vayisrof ba'esh vayitchan asher dak. He grinds it up very thin. Vayizer al pnei hamayim. He scatters it on the water. Vayashkes b'nei Yisrael. He gives the b'nei Yisrael to drink. So Rashi says, and then we're going to see that some of the people are going to drink the water. Some of the people are going to be executed by the sword. Now, putting it in the water and giving it to the people to drink. Take a look at Rashi. It's a right column, bottom line. Vayashkes b'nei Yisrael. Says, does that ring a bell? Drinking something? Does it ring a bell?
Yes.
What?
Base of Mikdash with the female.
Yes, a woman who's been unfaithful to her husband or suspected the Sota. So what does she drink? She drinks a soda, right? You take it's the divine name soda, right? You take some water and you erase Hashem's name. She drinks a soda. That's what you should call the Sota, right? Okay, take a look at the bottom Rashi here. Vayashkes b'nei Yisrael. Bottom line in Rashi, right column. Niskavein levodkom kesotos. Moshe's intent was to check them, to test them like sotas. Says Rashi. Now listen very carefully. We need to read this Rashi. Shalosh misos nidonu sham. There were 3 types of death. Im yesh edim v'hasra. If there were witnesses and there was a warning. Witnesses were that said, hey, Chaim, stay away from that egel. And the guy went anyway. Bisayif. He was executed by the sword. Kimishpat anshe iranidach hashein merubim. Just like the penalty carried out against the people of an entire city that has been hoodwinked into worshiping idols. Eidim, witnesses below Hasra. There are witnesses, but the guy never got a warning. B'magefa, they died in the plague. Shenemar v'yigof Hashem esa'am. Later on in the Pasuk, Hashem smote the people. Lo eidim v'lo Hasra, without witnesses, without warning. Behidrokan. Hidrokan is some sort of hepatitis or some sort of illness. Shebodku mamayim, the water checked them. Vitsavu bitneim, their stomachs, their bellies swelled, just like a sota. Okay, couple of points over here. The first thing is that when in let's say somebody desecrates Shabbos. Let's go back to basics. Somebody desecrates Shabbos. When there was a Sanhedrin, what's the punishment for somebody who desecrates Shabbos or worships idols or commits murder? What's the punishment? Chayav means a death penalty. Either stoning or strangulation or the sword, whatever it is. Okay. But there is a rule when Beis Din executes somebody. It has to be that there were 2 witnesses. They said, don't do it. He has to accept the warning and say, al minaskein. I accept your warning, and in spite of that, I'm going to do it. That he has to commence doing it within a couple of seconds of the warning. In other words, the circumstances to give a person capital punishment in Beis Din are so remote that it was almost never carried out. Okay? What if there are witnesses, but there was no warning? You can't execute a guy for that. In Beis Din, there were witnesses. Oh, we saw this guy pull a cucumber out of his salad on Shabbos. He did borer. You can't execute him. There was no warning. And if the guy did it and there are no witnesses at all, then nowadays, then a person is accountable to God. God will take care of him. But Beis Din can't. Here, there were 3 categories of people: witnesses and warning, witnesses without warning, and neither. So here he checks them like a sota. Now, remember when we went back? Go back to a page for a second. Vayitein el Moshe kechalosa, 3 lines from the bottom. He gave to Moshe when he finished l'daber ito bar Sinai shnei luchos ha'edus. Remember what we said yesterday? The word kechaloso means. What is the play of words? Rashi say when he finished, but we said it's also related to what word? A kala, which is a bride. He gave Moshe the bride. So the luchos are called the bride. And by the way, why is it called the bride instead of the wife? Why are the luchos referred to as a bride instead of as a wife? He gave Moshe as a wife as opposed to a bride. When a couple gets married, there's a certain freshness. After a while, they develop a different type of relationship, but that original freshness isn't there. Our relationship to Torah should be, every day that you learn Torah should be fresh and exciting. Like a person first getting married. Now, more than that, the entire relationship between God and the Jewish people, you know what the Gemara says when the Medrash says, when the Jewish people go off and they worship the idol, you know what it's called? It's like a woman who commits adultery under her chuppah. I mean, that's pretty crude. She's getting married to Ruvain and she commits adultery with Shimon under the chuppah. Remember the mountain was raised above their head? That symbolizes a chuppah. This is the marriage. Klal Yisrael is marrying the Jewish people. Let's back up for a second. Do you know there are 3 holidays in the course of the year? There's Sukkot, there's Pesach, and there's Shavuos, right? There's Sukkot, there's Pesach, and there's Shavuos. Sorry, I got to back order. There's Pesach, there's Shavuos, and there's Sukkot. What was Pesach? Pesach is follow me out of Egypt. It's like the groom inviting the bride to follow him. That's the engagement. Shavuos is when the Torah is given. That's the marriage. That's where they are right now. That's the chuppah. And then Sukkot is the home that they build. They move into the home together. There's a marriage, so to speak, between metaphorically, God is the husband, the Jewish people are the wife. Well, if the wife are loyal to the husband, God's the husband, and right at the chuppah, Moshe Rabbeinu went up to get the luchos, and right at the chuppah, you go and you betray your husband for somebody else. That's exactly like the unfaithful wife who's the Sota. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu gives them to drink from the waters. That's the connection. And what's this got to do with immorality? The answer is that they are the wife, the proverbial wife, who has become disloyal to her husband. And at a time, it's one thing if you're disloyal. It's another thing you're at the chuppah. At the chuppah. And therefore, they're being checked like sotas. And that's why it says, and their bellies swelled. Because the Gemara says that the Sota, by the way, there's a biscuit, the Sota does not explode when she drinks the water. Yeah, it's not like she drinks the water and kaboom, look out, Monty Python after dinner mint, it's not a wedding. There's no explosion over here. The Sota is somebody, she drinks the water and her stomach swells. It's a painful death that she dies. Her stomach swells. She doesn't explode in the Beis HaMikdash. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu is giving them the test as a Sota over here. Okay, go on to the next page, page 500. Vayamod Moshe b'shara machane. I want to show you something that I noticed, which is really remarkable, and it can't be an accident. Vayamod Moshe b'shara machane. Moshe stands in the gates of the camp. Vayomer Mila Hashem Elai. Who is loyal to God? Come to me. Vayeyasu alav kol b'nei Levi. And the entire tribe of Levi joins Moshe Rabbeinu. None of them sinned at the golden calf. Vayomer lahem ko amar Hashem Elokei Yisrael, simu ish charbo al yerechel. Put your sword on your thigh. You used to carry the sword in a hilt. Ivru vashuvu mishar l'shar b'meracha. Go from gate to gate in the camp. V'hirgu ish es achiv. Kill your brother. It means if, let's say, he has a brother from a different, let's say a stepbrother from a different father, because then the Levites died. V'ish es re'eo, your fellow v'ish es krova. No nepotism. Somebody's guilty, you got to execute them. Okay? Now, I want to show you something. I want to show you a contrast. We're on page 500 over here. I want you to turn back to a second for Parshas Vayishlach. Parshas Vayishlach, chapter 34. This is the section where Dinah, the daughter of Yaakov, has been violated. What did Shimon and Levi, what did the two of them do in response to Dinah being violated? They took out the trash. Yeah, they trashed the town, right? By the way, they had in Pisgat Ze'ev. Remember Pisgat Ze'ev is a neighborhood here in Yerushalayim. So there are a lot of Gruzinian Russians live there. And apparently some of the Arabs took a fancy to some of the Gruzinian young ladies. And apparently the Gruzinian young men didn't appreciate it. So they had a meeting. they had a meeting, and there was some physical therapy applied, right? And that put an end to that. There are certain times in life where you gotta stand up and be counted, and they dealt with them as Gruzinians are quite capable of dealing with them. And the Gruzinians, many of them went. They each made a separate trip. The Gruzinians, some of them went to jail. And the Arabs, all of them went to the hospital. They basically put an end to that problem over here. Shimon and Levi say they go out there and they take their swords, they wipe out the city. What happens afterwards? What's Yaakov Avinu's response?
He's upset because
he's upset. He's upset. And you want to see a remarkable contrast? Take a look at this. Look what they did with their swords. Take a look at Pasuk 25. 6 lines from the top. Vayehi bayom hashlishi, it was on the third day. Biyosam koavim, they were in pain because they had circumcised. Vayichu shnei bnei Yaakov, Shimon v'Levi achei Dina, ish charbo, each man took his sword. Vayavo alir betach vayargu kol zachar, they took their swords and they killed all the males. Turn back to page 500, look what Moshe Rabbeinu says then. Look what Moshe Rabbeinu says on the third line from the top. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Sim ish charbo al yirecho. Put your sword on your thigh. What's the difference, gentlemen? What's the difference? You don't hear a difference? Or the difference crying, screaming off the page at you. You're about to go and make life and death decisions. Keep your sword on your thigh in the hilt before you make that decision. Shimon and Levi are holding the sword. Wanton killing. They wipe out a whole town. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to Levi, listen, you're going to have to execute people. Put your sword on your thigh. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You're going to execute people, the sword should be in your hand, right? He's telling you a very important rule when you're judging people. Before you go around killing people, keep the sword on your thigh. You got a serious decision to make over here. If the sword's in your hand, it's much easier to make that decision, right? Well, I'm not sure. No. Keep the sword on your thigh. That's the difference between what Shimon and Levi did and what the B'nai Levi do over here. The B'nai Levi over Moshe Rabbeinu says, listen, you got to go around and you may have to execute people. Make sure that if you execute people, you're doing it with the proper forethought. Make sure you're doing it with a weight. Do you know that the Gemara makes a statement that a judge, the Gemara in Sanhedrin, the Gemara says that a judge should imagine as if there's a sharp sword perched between his legs. A Torah judge should imagine that there's a sharp sword perched between his legs when he sits in judgment. Pretty graphic, isn't it? What do you think a person who's got a sharp sword perched between his legs, what do you think he's going to do?
Think twice.
He's going to move very slowly, very carefully. That's exactly what you're doing. You're a judge. You got people's lives in your hand. They had a judge in the United States. There was a case. The case came up. The judge couldn't decide when to go. Guy's guilty and innocent. He flipped a coin. To document the case, the judge flipped a coin. A federal judge. He couldn't decide, so he flipped a coin to decide if he's guilty or innocent. It's not a football game. It's not overtime when you decide if you want to receive or if you want to get. He flipped a coin to decide if the guy's got to go to jail or not. You can't flip coins. You got to know the halacha, and you got to think very carefully, especially if you're about to execute people. Okay.